It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wise discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather's senior meteorologist, Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
Hello there, South Mississippi, and thank you for waking up with Wesley. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. Hey, we made it to October, a new month here, and the new beginnings promise cooler weather by the end of this month. I think the odds are in your favor that you will use your car heater at least one time between right now and 11:59 p.m. Halloween night. I think it's more likely than not you will use that car heater. Now, it's going to take some time to get there. Don't expect to do that today, but as we get deeper into the month, it looks likely that the cooler air will get here eventually. But before we jump into the future, let's take a quick trip into the past just to give you an update on what we saw in September. And there's a look at some of the numbers. I know it's kind of a busy chart, but it's easy once you look at yesterday. Yesterday, the high temperature was 91. Yesterday, the low temperature was 70. And there's 30 whole bars, which takes you all the way back to September 1st. So when you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see the coolest morning of the month of September was right about here, which was, let's see, 16, 17, 18. It was the 18th morning. We had 66 degrees. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go back here. Excuse me. So that was the 6th, 7th, 8th morning of the month. We had 65 degrees. Hottest afternoon in the month, it was a three-way tie between this on the 6th, this on the, what would that be, 11th, 12th, and then this on the, let's see, 21, 20, 19. So 3 days we had 92. So we can take a more calendar-like look at these, at these numbers here. And you can see again that three-way tie for that 92 degree temperature on the 6th, on the 12th, and that was the 19th. Most of the afternoons last month were above normal. That's all those red boxes. Very few of the afternoons last month were below normal, and the ones that were mainly took place in the start of the month, back when it was summer. So go figure, the summer part of September was actually cooler than normal, afternoon-wise, and the fall part of September was actually warmer than normal, afternoon temperature-wise. But enough about the temperatures. Let's talk about the rain, because that was the significant part of September. We had hardly any rain the entire month. And when you add up the number, well, first of all, it looks like there were only 2, maybe 3 days that the Gulfport Airport saw rain. And when you add up those numbers, you get to basically about a ½ inch of rain, which normally is supposed to be more than 5 inches of rain. So that's a pretty sizable deficit. The year, that's actually close to normal. We used to have a surplus for the year, but the dry September kind of ate away at that. We can actually show you what that looks like on this map here, this chart rather here. See, we had a really wet May. It was doubly wet than normal, but because we had such a dry September and a pretty dry April, overall, our rain for the year so far, precipitation for the year so far, actually pretty normal. If the year ended today, 2025 would be a year with near normal rain, but we still got, 3 months to go. And going from October, which is usually the driest month of the year, into November, December, you can see some more precipitation. Temperature-wise, the year has also been near normal, if you were wondering about that. Even though we had a really cold January, it snowed. There were some warmer conditions in February, warmer than usual, and warmer than usual conditions in April. Most of the rest of the months, this past spring, this past summer, those have actually been pretty close to normal temperature-wise overall. But yeah, we're in a drought. We could use some rain, and so we're looking ahead to October, which, by the way, had a start that was gorgeous in Gulfport, that nice sunrise. But we're wondering, can we get some rain? Can we wring some rain out of October? Well, we can wring some pumpkins out of October. Start your counter, get a ticker. Every time you see a pumpkin this month, click your little ticker and see how many you wind up with by the end of the month. Just don't break the switch on the ticker. So here's a look at what you can expect. So the first day of October, today, We usually have an afternoon temperature in the middle 80s, a morning low temperature in the middle 60s. But by Halloween, typically you have an afternoon temperature in the middle 70s and a morning temperature in the middle 50s. So, you know, if things go as normal, we are headed for some cooler days. It doesn't look like it's happening over the next 7 days, but you know, if I could give you a 30-day forecast, if I could give you a 40-day, a 50-day forecast, we would probably find some cooler air in there. But because the forecast right now is kind of only limited to the next 7 to 10 days, I can't really find much of that for you. There you go with October, only giving us about 3 inches of rain for the month. So that's usually the driest month of the year. Oh, and by the way, duration of daylight. Let's talk about that, because the mornings, the sunrise this morning was 6:50. Today's sunset will be 6:42. But by Halloween, the sunrise is way at 7:10. We're gonna, you know, the sunrise gets 20 minutes later, naturally, without the time change. There's no man-made anything happening. That's just pure Mother Nature. You go from the first day of October to the final day of October, and you lose 20 minutes out of your morning. You gotta wait 20 minutes later for the sky to get brighter. As far as the evenings go, it looks like an even sharper change. You got sunset tonight at 6:42, but sunset on Halloween is way at 6:10. It's almost before 5 or almost before 6 in the evening. So again, no man-made, there's no time change at all happening in October. There's no fallback. That's all pure Mother Nature there, and you have a daylight loss of basically an hour. I know there's always a lot of chatter around this time of year when we get close to the time change. Everyone's like, oh, get rid of the time change. But that doesn't stop the day from naturally getting shorter, even if you don't fall back. I think the fallback kind of helps you out. I'm biased since I'm a morning person, but I don't like the dark mornings. I know we don't like the dark evenings either, but when you have this naturally happening with your sunrise getting earlier, or rather later and later in the morning, it stays dark later and later. You got school kids standing outside waiting at the school bus stop, and it's not as bright for them. You know, maybe they have to use, I've seen parents with flashlights, at least small ones, at the bus stop waiting in the morning for the school bus. You can actually take a look at this sunrise tracker I just threw together. That gets you deeper into November. The time change will happen. We will fall back on Sunday, November 2nd. So that's a month from tomorrow. We will lose an hour of sleep when we get that time change. But for the mornings, it helps you out. So this is kind of your glass half full part of the time change, because our mornings get later and later with the sunrise naturally. And then here comes the man-made time change. Wham! You get the sunrise an hour earlier, and we get to start our day on the bright side again instead of starting our day waiting for that sunrise to come up. Now, there's probably some less desirable things that happen in the evening with that time change, but I'm a morning guy, so I'm not even gonna come into this update with that negativity. I'm not gonna talk about what the time change does to your evenings. We'll just talk about that. It's a nice thing for the mornings, and I'll leave the bad news about the evenings to someone else. All right, weather-wise, what do we got to talk about here? There's not much change. If you've been keeping up with the forecast, there's not much change to what to expect. Today, there's some isolated showers possible. There's not a big chance for that, 10 to 20%. And we've had mild temperatures this morning, looking at a very warm afternoon, upper 80s. And looks like the time, we just switched into the 9 o'clock hour, so my graphic just changed there. But I want to point out those winds. Notice that they're only going to be up to about 10 miles per hour today. I'm giving you the first alert that we are expecting breezier weather heading into late week and this weekend. So those wind speeds are going to pick up, and that could cause some minor coastal flooding for some of our counties. Or at least parts of our coast, rather. It will also likely cause choppier seas in the Mississippi Sound and the offshore waters, just because it's breezy. And then we're talking about some rain chances. I'm still not completely sold on this stuff, but it's a chance that we could see some wetter weather as we go into the weekend. Let's talk about the wind first, then we'll get to the rain. Here's a look at your 3-day forecast. Today, like I said, the wind's only up to about 10 miles an hour, but tomorrow and Friday, they will be breezier. And we can actually take a look at the direction those winds will be coming from the east. And when you have this persistent wind from the east, There's a part of our shoreline in Hancock County that faces east. All of these areas near Bay St. Louis, near Waveland, on the coast of Hancock County, those are all going to be areas that when you're facing perpendicular, you're facing the wind. The wind is blowing toward that coastline, toward the west. It's blowing from east to west. And that's going to pile up some tide water. When the high tide comes in, it might come in a foot or two higher than usual. And that could cause some minor flooding along the immediate shoreline, mainly around high tide. This probably won't even be enough to lead to road closures because it's so minor, but it's worth mentioning in case you see that right there along the immediate shoreline, it is a possibility. And we can take a look at some of the wind gust speeds going into the next 3 days. Here's today, the wind gust speed up to about 10 miles per hour as that information loads. There you go, up to about 10 miles per hour for Wednesday's wind gusts. Thursday, double it, up to 20 miles per hour for those wind gusts, at least along the coast. And then Friday, also looking at up to 20 miles per hour for those wind gusts. Of course, even gustier offshore. So that's us giving you that first alert that we are moving into a breezier weather pattern beginning Thursday, Friday, continuing this weekend, and maybe only slightly letting up at some point next week. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the rain. As far as rain is concerned for the next 2 to 3 days, there's not a whole lot, right? Look at this. Not much coming Wednesday, not much Thursday, not much Friday, not much Saturday. But go to Saturday night and Sunday, and both of our model lines start to go up. They differ on how much they go up, and so that annoying uncertainty remains in the forecast. It's another day, 3 in a row now, that I can't tell you with certainty what to expect rain-wise. But as we get closer to that day, I am pretty confident that we will kind of iron out some of this uncertainty. But today, there's still that wrinkle in the forecast. So, the GFS going over an inch of rain Sunday, European model going about a half inch of rain Sunday, and then some of it levels out into next week. The GFS actually has another round around next Tuesday, Wednesday. So, will we get an inch of rain over the next 7 days, or will we get 3 inches of rain over the next 7 days? That's the uncertainty that I'm talking about. And it is going to be kind of like on a fine line here, a sharp gradient between this bullseye of 4 or 5 inches of rain offshore and lighter amounts once you get closer to the coast. And that gradient is very sharp, right? Look at the purple color south of I-10. That's about 1.5 inches of rain. But then look at the light blue color near Wiggins and Lucedale. That's less than 1 inch of rain. So there's a very sharp gradient there. The closer you are to the coast, especially offshore, that's where we're probably going to find some of the heavier rain amounts. I know if you're cruising the coast, you're not cruising the inland, you're cruising the coast. So, the coast is going to be the closest place to the Gulf waters where the heaviest rain is. So that's why if you got some cruising plans, you do want to watch this closely in case the information changes and this gets closer to us or it gets farther from us. It can make the world's difference between a drier setup and a wetter setup into the weekend. But since it is still with that uncertainty, I'm not convinced enough to budge our rain chances very much just yet. I think once we are within 3 days of Sunday, which is Friday, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday, since I'm a morning person, I count the day of on my 7-day. So Friday will be the day. If you want to know more about Sunday with greater certainty, check back on Friday's forecast, as that will be the most models I can throw at it and give me the best look at the information to get more certain about what to expect. But today for Wednesday, I think it's still too early to make a surefire, set-in-stone forecast about the rain because the models still have that uncertainty about them. But that's pretty much what to expect as we go into the first week of October. No major cool downs, just looking at eventually some breezier weather and the possibility of some higher rain chances beginning around Saturday night into Sunday. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. We'll see you again next time.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.